Let's move on to Michigan. There's a lawsuit, right, that's been filed by Sidney Powell. Can we just say the Kraken has been released? Can we just, because we were talking about, does she have some bombshells? I would say that this certainly would suffice. Doesn't mean that it's going to win, but certainly pretty thorough and certainly something that absolutely, that in the cumulative case that's being made, I don't see how you throw this out.
Oh, there's no doubt. I mean, look, even just over the course of the last couple of days, you had the city of Detroit have their own counsel move to intervene in the Michigan suit in order to defend the election itself in the process. Now, that makes sense because Wayne County is the center of where a lot of the controversy was, which we covered all during the election.
Center of hell, but that too.
Yeah, I mean, you know, I don't want to insult hell.
So in Michigan, both the Michigan and the Georgia lawsuits, there are some allegations that are sort of joint, right? They apply to both states.
Yeah.
One, of course, is that the Dominion software was accessed by agents from China and Iran in order to manipulate elections, including the 2020 election. So this is a big one, the Dominion software issue. This is something that they do have, apparently, whistleblowers, and they do have sworn testimony from people who are cybersecurity experts, and there are some independent analyses that you can look up right now. Now, let's be clear. I want to be clear about something. Affidavits are considered admissible, correct?
Most of the time, you have to evaluate the statements, but yes.
Yes, you have to evaluate the statements. Statistical evidence is admissible.
By an expert, correct.
By an expert, correct. Now, in tandem, when you have affidavits from people saying, hold on a second, we were sent away because they said that a pipe burst, and turns out that it didn't, and there were all these vote dumps that don't make sense. And then you have an expert analysis say, hold on, there are these vote dumps that actually have never occurred anywhere in nature in a normal election. In tandem, that is serious evidence. We don't just have affidavits, and we don't just have circumstantial evidence. There are affidavits which can be corroborated by statistical anomalies as well as potentially videographic evidence. So this is pretty big. So let's go here. There were 289,000 more ballots that were processed. This is in the Michigan brief that you can read. In 4 precincts or townships, over what the capacity allows. Producing spikes that indicate manual adjustment, this is what it says, by those operating the system or by an attack from outside actors. And by the way, what's interesting about this, if you look it up in Michigan, and we have all these sources available at loudwithcrowder.com, the more conservative the county, the more abnormal the spikes in some cases.
Yeah.
Or the precinct, at least. Like you look at Kent County, and you have liberals in Grand Rapids. I'm from Michigan, so I know the state pretty well. But there's some precincts in Kent County that are unbelievably conservative.
Yeah.
And all of a sudden, with these dumps, they switch. And what this means is they have a certain capacity where you go, how many ballots can you process? Right? How many ballots can you count in this time?
Right.
They've estimated that number, and there's 289,000 more ballots than all experts said could be processed in that time.
Right, exactly.
They were
And
fast.
this is also the state
Diligent.
that couldn't get their count done in a week, and they're like, well, maybe we just sprinted too hard in that 1 hour where we counted 280,000 more votes than
Counting all
we
the
had to take a
Biden
break
votes.
after that or something.
I mean, this is one of those things where if there is an explanation, it's readily apparent. If there is an explanation other than a manual switch of votes, if you reach the capacity of a certain system or a certain ability to do things, and you're well past that, we're not talking about, you managed to squeeze in a couple because your thumbs were working real fast, right? I mean, when you get that many more, you have to be able to answer the question, and all we hear is crickets.
I can just tell you today, we were over capacity. That's why we didn't have those clips ready.
Too many clips.
Because we do not have the budget of CNN, only they don't use it. They tell you nothing. So
faceless.
you can clearly see, like, we have the ability to process this much before the show. We screwed up. You trusted us, but we fixed it. By the way, hit the notification bell if you're subscribed, because subscriptions don't mean a whole lot, and that'll, we're every weekday mornings, Monday through Thursday at 10 a.m. Eastern. Here's another one. An independent analysis found Trump's margin of defeat in 4 states occurred within just 4 data dumps. This is a quote from it, vote pattern analysis. A few key vote updates in competitive states were unusually large in size and had an unusually high Biden to Trump ratio. We demonstrate the results differ enough from expected results to be cause for concern. Here's an example in Michigan. So in Michigan, you have, I don't remember if it's 143,000 or 179,000 votes that occurred really from just a few data dumps.
Yeah.
Now, this happened, keep in mind, most of these dumps in the dead of night. Remember when we all went home?
Yep.
Right.
When people say, why conspiracy? No, we were here. We were one of the few networks. We were here while that happened. The only reason we stopped the stream was because they said, we're not going to count anymore.
Yeah.
We're going to start at 9. And we said, well, I guess there's nothing left for us to cover. They're going to start at 9. I took an hour and a half nap in a hammock and said, oh, now Trump's losing.
Wait, what?
And here's the thing that's important to note. It's not, a lot of people are throwing around like there's this debunked graph, right? I'm not an analyst. I'm not a statistician. Okay, I want to be very clear about that. But there are people who've done a lot of work, and there have also been frauds. I think, not necessarily a fraud, but got it wrong. That Dr. Shiva guy, he created a graph that wasn't quite accurate. You don't need to share. I wouldn't share that.
No.
Again, we have some analysts, and we'll have their links up at louderwithcrowder.com. Here's something that's important. If you look at the ratio, right? When you take a sample, the larger the sample, okay, there's an inverse relationship between the ratio, the margin that would occur between two votes. For example, if you were to take a poll, right, let's just say a precinct, we're just here in the Louder with Crowder precinct, you might have 100% for Donald Trump. Maybe someone out there voted for Libertarian. Hope you enjoy the downfall of Western civilization, but you feel good with your black tar heroin. But I'm pretty sure it'd be like 98% for Donald Trump.
Yeah.
Then you go to the block of where we are here, and then, okay, maybe now you have a few hundred people, maybe you get a 90-10. Now you go to a few thousand people because you have a generally closer sampling to that of society at large, you end up with an 80-20. If you get into the many thousands, hundreds of thousands, that's where you get something more representative of the American public. Could be 50-50, could be 60-40, it would be considered a blowout in almost any precinct at a 70-30, including San Francisco. Okay? Just to be clear. But in these huge data dumps with hundreds of thousands of votes in places like Michigan, you have some percentages-wise for people to understand, like 96-4 for Biden. So we have the opposite. What we're seeing here is the larger the data dumps that occur, the more people, the greater the margin, the greater the ratio of Joe Biden to Donald Trump, which does not occur anywhere else in nature. That is a statistical anomaly, which, by the way, has only happened in these major swing states, namely a handful of major cities, Detroit, Philadelphia, Atlanta, and I can't remember, I think Milwaukee.
Yeah, exactly. This is one of the most interesting analyses that I've seen. Vote pattern analysis.
We're way past getting pronunciation right today.
Exactly. Go and read this. I read the entire thing. One point I wanted to make is that all of these happen. These data dumps.
Read?
Yeah, it's a new thing.
It's surprising.
All of these data dumps happened within 5 hours of each other. They happened only in the specific places that needed to have this happen for the swing state vote to change. And if they did an analysis and said, look, we're not
in places
no bias
where poll workers were not allowed to watch.
Exactly. Everybody was gone, right? We have no bias here. All we're saying is if we look at all of the data, 6,000 vote dumps, and you normalize the data to make sure you're comparing apples to apples, they said this never happens. And if it does, one thing happens. Three things happened in this one instance, especially in Michigan. And they said, look, if you just put these in line with 99% of the other data dumps, that's all you have to do. Take them from the 99.7 to 99. Donald Trump wins each of those states.
Yeah, and he also won the Bellwether County. So there are a lot of things that would have to happen for the first time here in this election that have never happened before. And by the way, didn't happen in other counties. And those things just so happened to take place in the counties or in the precincts where we have hundreds of affidavits of people saying, by the way, they sent us away from poll watching and we weren't allowed to see, and they boarded it up with Bristol boards and they had ballots come in coolers. Doesn't matter what CNN says that the red wagon was just bringing in camera equipment, which by the way is such horse shit.
Yeah.
Listen, we carry camera equipment. You cannot protect a multi-$1,000 lens.
It's not safe.
Not
in a
Yeti.
red wagon.
You know, one of the when that came out, I was like,
What about the coolers?
I was like, okay, great. You know, you had this camera equipment, and that's all that was. You were bringing it in.
Okay.
Why did you need the Bristol boards then? If
Right.
you're putting cameras inside of the room, why are you blocking the windows? Why are you sending people away?
Right,
if the whole thing is open, it's fine. Okay, great. Then just be consistent. When that came out, the first thing I thought was, why were you hiding
That's
it
very
then?
good. I'm going to let you finish, but first I got to process these 143,000 votes. Look at that, 96-4 Biden.
Who knew?
Damn, look at that.
You
look at
were
that.
saying?
By the way, that is enough. That is enough. I'm sorry, I have to go back. That is enough by itself.
Yes.
She could have filed a one-page document in Michigan and said, this doesn't happen in life. We have to dig here, and that would have been enough.
And there's more than that. In Georgia, the state flips if you just throw out people who kind of like have registration in two different states.
Exactly.
Or double votes. It's a 12,000 vote margin. Keep in mind, some people still
Tiny.
think it's like 16, 18,000, or even 14,000. No, because even in counting without checking signatures, the machine ballots twice, they found 5,500 votes, most of which for Donald Trump.
Oops.
I don't know how that happens. If not that, what warrants an actual audit? If not that, we were told before this, there's no election fraud. It's never happened. They were told, it happens, but in like very small numbers. It's not widespread. It might be a couple hundred. Then they found 5,500 ballots, and they go, it's not enough to flip the state. Yeah, but you were wrong about all the other shit, and I think you're lying about the current shit.
Yeah.
I do appreciate that there is at least some level of intellectual honesty going on with leftist media, because they're out there. They used to say there's no such thing as voter fraud. Then they stepped back and they were like, well, there's no widespread.
Yeah.
There's no substantial widespread. But here's the thing. It doesn't have to be widespread and substantial.
No.
You don't have to commit voter fraud in California and Oregon and Montana and Utah and Massachusetts. You only have to find a couple of districts. You only have to do a couple of things in a couple of precincts. Now, that's not the way you do it if you're really going to do a good job of hiding it, because this is the statistical analysis. Now, here's one thing I think will be interesting as we move forward. People are going, what's the next step? When you get into this evidence, you start going, okay, let's compare a 96-4 in these jurisdictions and these dumps to even the most liberal Democrat Biden-friendly jurisdictions that use the same software.
Right.
And if you don't see those same dumps,
or let's even compare them to the liberal, most pro-Biden counties that you could imagine, mail-in ballots, but by hand. Let's see if you find a 96-4. Let's see if you find a 92-8 consistently.
You know what you find in San Francisco, which I think is used as the example of the most? It's 90-10.
So much
It's 90-10. They have not been able to get up past the 95 point. Yeah.
Killer T cells. Also, we're going to move on to Georgia here. But first, L.A. Mayor Eric Garcetti. There's a name. He bent the knee to Black Lives Matter. Remember, he voted to cut the LAPD by $150 million this
Good
summer.
on him. Yeah.
Well, now here he is having the LAPD guard his home from Black Lives Matter protesters who apparently didn't get the memo that he's one of you. They're protesting because they don't want Biden to appoint him to the cabinet. Here you go. Oh, Garcetti.
What a scam.
Thank God he has the military there. Otherwise, he might require a gun. Sorry, the rest of you Californians.
With 8 rounds, 9 rounds, is that what it is?
10-round magazine and a bullet button.
golly. You know, the irony of the BLM protesters. I just want to explode. Sorry, I lost my train of thought.
I thought you were going to bring it back.
No.
His
Look,
brain exploded.
it did. It did. Well, first of all, I loved that Garcetti. I mean, look at him.
It was based on Hanging with Mr. Cooper.
I like it. It was nice.
It's a fun
Best
show.
sitcom ever.
Womp, womp, womp. Don't call it formulaic. For a comeback.
Oh, jeez.
I don't think he ever came back.
No.
Please don't
for
tell me
years,
he's dead, because then people say it's in poor taste. I don't think he's dead.
No, I don't think
All
so.
right, let's go on to Georgia, because this is a 104-page lawsuit. Oh, my gosh. That would be like Maury Povich.
There he is in the door. He's coming to the door.
Mr. Cooper, come on out. What'd I say? What'd I say? What, was he talking? Did he say something?
Where's your Rick to kind of
Was he
protect
talking to me earlier?
Yeah.
What did you say?
I said that.
It's just what I say is what I say. But did you say something? Nah. It's confusing,
that's clear.
and that's why you hang with me, so you're in the loop. This sitcom did not last. I blame Patrick Duffy and Step by Step. That's some bullshit.
Hit. Patrick Duffy Brillo head. Yeah.
It was a hit. You think that's where Rand Paul got the haircut? So let's go to Georgia.
There's the theory.
Sidney Powell, the lawsuit there. Many affidavits again, as well as statistical evidence and some video footage. It's summarized. Again, we have this at loudwithcrowder.com. A few things, let me kind of hit them. Votes were switched in Biden's favor during the recount. These are the claims in the suit.
Right.
There was a lack of procedures that were being followed during the election, and Georgia purchased Dominion voting systems despite knowing vulnerabilities, which, by the way, Democrats warned about that, and Texas rejected using Dominion voting systems. The pipe burst story, remember? We were there. We were there election night.
Wow.
We were covering it because some systems just went down in Georgia, which we don't know the systems that went down if they were Dominion. I don't think we know that yet. But we covered that election night. You can go back if you want to watch the 9-hour stream. People going, oh, why are you? There are receipts. It's called a 9-hour stream.
Right.
Do your own research.
Remember
the systems went down?
Yeah.
And we've talked about how long that could extend.
counties.
And then the pipe burst. And we're like, well, I guess they stopped counting. That happened that night. I remember talking about it. Turns out that didn't happen. And there may be video footage of them still counting. So what they did is they told people, the pipe burst, you have to go home. And from 10 p.m. to 1 a.m., they continued counting votes without poll watchers. If I'm a judge, I go, oh, okay, well, let's just grab those votes and we can't know which ones from that time. Well, let's take an estimate, throw them out! Throw them out!
You have to.
Why do you want to disenfranchise? You sent people home with a bullshit story about a pipe bursting, and we have video proof that you lied. Throw them out, throw them out, throw them out.
The super speed counting with less people is pretty amazing.
Exactly. It is amazing.
They're very
How they
efficient
do
when
that.
no one is watching.
You know,
that's all it is.
Makes it. Sometimes I just got to go to a quiet spot. You know, I fake a pipe burst, and I can bang out a brief real fast.
Hold on, I can't talk. I'm vote laundering.
The quiet morning.
So this is actually right here in the actual lawsuit. This to me is really big because it says specifically video from the State Farm Arena in Fulton County shows that on November 3rd, after the polls closed, election workers falsely claimed a water leak required the facility to close. All poll workers and challengers were evacuated for several hours. At about 10 p.m., however, several election workers remained unsupervised and unchallenged, working at the computers for the voting tabulation machines until after 1 a.m. And of course, they failed Dominion.
Yes.
That name keeps popping up. It's the Eddie Haskell of voting systems. Can't tabulate. We can't tabulate which votes took place during that time.
Oh, no.
Now, again, this is what happened. The
happens.
media has not acknowledged this. The media goes, a pipe burst. And this is what would happen if you're watching CNN or Fox News. And we'll talk about Tucker Carlson in a little bit. I don't dislike the guy, but I think it's something that warrants being addressed considering the Sidney Powell shenanigans. And I believe that the Kraken it's a Kraken. So... They just said a pipe burst on election night. We told you a pipe burst on election night.
Right.
Then afterward, they said, by the way, there's no evidence. Right. They said completely unfounded unfounded claims of voter fraud. There's no evidence of voter fraud or irregularities. But we followed up. Hold on a second. That pipe didn't burst. You know that. We followed up on that. Now we say, wait a second. There is videographic evidence, and it's filed in this suit under penalty of perjury that they have videographic evidence of those people sending folks away and still counting votes for 3 hours. You don't see that on the media right now. So you still think all of this is unfounded. And that coincides with the affidavits of people saying we were sent home because a pipe burst and we didn't go back, and then all of a sudden these votes were in there. Again, this is not just he said, she said. It's he said, video, and a few 10,000 extra votes beyond capacity.
What do you want to bet that it's the same people who maintain the Epstein cameras are like, yeah, the area where the pipe burst, that camera was down.
Why
yeah.
have cameras? Why have cameras at all?
They never work.
Can we just get a Ring doorbell and assign an intern to charge it?
They stored them in coolers.
That's why.
Where's the camera?
No, nothing
Hey,
to look
quick,
into.
someone get my Coleman.
Every security camera is like 180p.
Yeah, exactly.
You're
It's
like, I can't, literally, there's only one pixel here.
Yeah.
It's the entire screen.
You're just showing me video footage from the Hunt for Red October. No, that's not the pipe in the arena.
This is just the Great Dictator with Charlie Chaplin. But are you not entertained?
It was good.
It is pretty good.
I mean, this is one of those questions that keeps being asked, which is where's the data of the logs as the data is coming in? How are we going to be able to audit? How are we able to look at it? All you'd be able to do is look at the answer. You'd be able to see, during that period, it actually had a huge drop in the number of tabulations. Yes, there were people in there. Yes, they were counting. We just didn't want to get too far behind. And so there was like a 99% drop, and this is how many few were going through. Instead, somehow, at the end of the period, you go black box magic, all of these ballots were counted.
Let me ask you this. There's a legal process for votes, right? There's a chain of custody. The legal process for votes, does it involve having accountability and poll watchers who are able to verify the votes?
Yes.
Yes, okay. Now, if those people are sent home, should you continue counting votes?
Depends in the jurisdiction, but most of the time, no.
What if they're sent home on a lie that a pipe burst and the videographic evidence shows that that is not the case? Does that seem like a problem, Bill?
You know, it does.
Now, that doesn't prove everything else.
No, of course.
But to me, that's enough to throw the certification of Georgia in doubt. Not to mention, you have anywhere, the estimates are between 6,000 and 11,000 votes from people who were out of state. I'm suffering from the same condition, Doc. I just showed you my registration in 2 different states. That was accidental, let alone if someone wanted to do it on purpose.
Yeah.
I think it would have been very easy for me to vote twice. I guarantee you I could have voted twice, actually.
Well, and if there's a logical explanation,
I still don't know that I haven't.
they should have already come out
you
with
didn't. Someone may have done
I'm
it.
just saying,
for
in the
you.
system, I still have no idea where my vote or my wife or Nana's is.
it. Yeah.
But the guy with the mask told me I could track it.
Right.
That was like the
right.
full, like the most full mask I've seen. Like it was
was
like all
nice.
the way up to his eyeballs and then down to his Adam's apple.
That's a guy
trying
who
to
ate
keep Grandma safe.
Thanksgiving by himself.
But just like he does every year.
What's the matter with that, Stephen?
So this is another one, more, again, statistical evidence looking at the anomalies. So now we have, affidavits, people saying we were turned away, people saying, all right, you know what, they continued counting votes, and them saying, no, there's no evidence. Now we have that evidence that they did continue counting votes with no poll watchers, no accountability, and they lied about a pipe bursting. And then we combine that with some crazy statistical anomalies that have happened in Georgia. Here we have Matt Brainerd of the Voter Integrity Project talking about it. Let's roll the clip.
All the analysis that we've done don't really require you to say, trust me about a magical mathematical formula or some pattern we discovered or something that supposedly happened in the software of the voting machines. I can give you the list of the people who voted in this election who filed national change of address cards in Georgia, moving themselves to another state. And I can also show you the subsequent state voter registrations of these individuals in other states who then cast earlier absentee ballots back in Georgia. I can show you the names of the people and the records of them having voted in multiple states in the raw data that the states make available. So this isn't speculative.
Yeah, and by the way,
Wow.
the FBI has requested the data so that they can review it, which means it'll disappear.
Absolutely.
When did the guy from Hitman get into voter fraud?
Yeah. Heavy
Making
career
47.
pivot.
And why did
2020
they
's tough.
put him in front of an exact tone of his flesh color?
Yeah, exactly.
My eyes kept focusing. I mean, maybe it's they're squinty, but you know.
The whole tie and whole.
I want to really
It was.
pop because this is a big deal for me
Yeah.
on air. How do you
Yeah.
feel about taupe?
It's a good background.
No, I don't really think that. I'm thinking something maybe not. How about sable? A good sand. No earth tones. So light brown. You're fired. By the way, this is something the lawsuit also calls for an emergency declaratory judgment that voting machines be seized and impounded immediately for a
Yes.
forensic audit. And to be clear, federal judge Timothy Batten, I want to make sure I get his name right, Timothy Batten Sr. reapproved a temporary restraining order late last night, declaring that election officials were barred from wiping or altering Dominion voting machines
Trying
used in
to
the November
wipe it?
election. Here's the
Yeah.
thing, too. Yeah, why wipe it? Why wipe it all?
Well, it's Hillary's server. You got to do it.
Nothing wrong here.
Right.
Well,
Let's
like
wipe
with
it.
a
Why
Why?
even consider wiping it at this point?
It's ridiculous.
That was on the table?
It's
Oh my
so just so some folks, everyone needs to go read this. But this order came out last night at I believe 10 Eastern. There was a revised order that came out that
Late.
said no, you
Yeah.
cannot go and delete these devices.
Right.
Now, here's
But
one of the
can I-
things that's
can I delete
interesting. Before you file these kinds of motions, in almost every jurisdiction, you have to confer ahead of time because courts want to know like, is there really a fight here or not? So that means that most likely. Sidney Powell and her legal team said, "Hey, we want you to not wipe these devices tomorrow," and they were like, "Nah." You got to go make the
Yeah,
court tell us
exactly.
not to.
Right.
So the allegation here was that these were going to be deleted today, that these devices would be wiped by the end of the day on November 30th while all of these questions were out there. Now, obviously, that's why all of this rush to put all this evidence together to get it out there, get it on file by Wednesday so that there could even be. The fact
Hence
that there
the
was a
typos.
hearing on Sunday, sure. That
Which seemed
definitely
like a
explains the
formatting
typos.
thing, by the way, to me, if you look at the way the words were spaced.
I mean,
and some odd symbols. I don't think it was
Yeah.
typos. I think
There's
it was
that.
formatting.
There's the being able to check on in all caps. Spell check doesn't work that well on that. Anyone
She
who's
was really
litigated knows that. I mean, look, it's frustrating stuff. But you look at all the subsequent briefing. Doesn't have those issues, and those
Yeah.
will be their distractions, but they don't touch the merits. And if someone is only pointing out the typos or the
Yeah.
formatting errors, it's because they can't attack the merits.
Yeah. Before you get to the rampant possible voter fraud, there's already enough in Georgia to just flip the margins as
Yeah,
far as people
well-
voting out of state, as far as double vote. There's already enough to completely evaporate
Yeah.
Joe Biden's lead. Just to be clear about that, Georgia absolutely, if you're just counting legal votes and you're not even getting into statistical anomalies, it should flip.
Yeah, exactly. And if they're like, "Oh, here's our excuse," and we're just like, "Oh, we can't count. Nope.
Yeah.
I have no idea which vote."
It
which-
turns out we counted all the votes in Safari private
yeah.
mode.
Oh, no.
Sorry,
Darn.
we can't do that. Now,
Next to our pictures of Belle Delphine.
the remedy for that is that legally they cannot, by federal law, they cannot send electors if there is fraud. If they suspect that there is fraud, they have the ability, because the federal law
Yep.
does say that you have to be able to make sure, like if there is a suspicion of fraud, right, you can't send electors to us, or I'm sorry, not that you can't, but you have the ability to not send electors and say, hey, we can't certify our vote. We
Right.
can't tell you who won because you guys cheated, and then you shuffled the papers around so we couldn't figure it out. So now
right.
you don't get those electoral votes. They just disappear from the map.
And so this is where the timing of the process really matters. And it mattered in 2000. Mm-hmm. And now it matters again.
I'm following you too.
Which is you can certify,
Keeps
but you
mattering,
still have to
yeah.
send it to the Electoral College. And what they're saying now is undo the certifications
Yeah.
because of the fraud. Don't send it to the Electoral College
Yeah.
because we need to look at it. And is that unpredented?
No.
That's 2000.
Al Gore had 37
Yeah.
days wanting to count only 3 counties.
Yeah.
And George Bush
Still
lost
lost.
every single case until it got to the Supreme Court where they said, like, why do you want to recount 3 counties? Let's recount the whole state. He said, no.
Yeah.
Wait. They said, no, we're going to recount everything. He said, no. They said, dismissed. Effectively.
Yeah.
That's not the
Could
legal
you
jargon.
imagine if in 2000 Al Gore came up and was like, look, guys, before the count's over, we're just going to destroy all of the chads,
Yeah.
hanging or otherwise.
Right.
Yeah.
And in fact, we're just going to annihilate all of the records. I invented
But
the
I
internet.
want-
Except for
No
3 counties,
chance.
and I don't want to see any of those Cubano votes somewhere.
Oh boy.
Venezuelans, what do they know? Socialism works.
If it's done right.
So does my masseuse. Here's what I will say, because I think
very
it's January
pro-Chad.
6th. This is going to go before the floor, right, when they confirm the election. I think January 6th.
January 6th, yes.
Any Republican at this point, any Republican who does not, they will all have their time to issue objections, who does not issue an objection to this election I will say primary them, vote them out.
Yeah.
I'm not saying that you can say all of these votes, you can prove every single claim here, but anyone who has no problem with these elections, these anomalies, these irregularities in this election, any Republican up there, so people talk about Team Trump, people talk about Republicans in the swamp, listen. If you care about the future of our constitutional republic, you better have an objection January 6th. Anyone who doesn't, you make my shit list.
Right.
I just want to be really clear. And let me be clear about something else too. I said this before. Joe Biden, if he wins, I'll accept him as the president. If we go through the process, it is very clear right now, unless this goes to the Supreme Court, there will be no honest tally, no investigation of these votes. And to save time, I will say President Biden for the next 4 years, if that's the way it goes. But I'll claim this ground right. No, I'm not going to consider him my president.
Yeah. Absolutely.
Count me on that crowd. A T-shirt, not my president, if there are no objections and none of these things are examined. If we don't throw out at least the votes from people who are out of state and dead folks and people who are underage. I know you have a lot of milquetoast commentators out there saying, well, those are... Nope. Cheated.
Yeah.
Sorry. If you play Rummikub with me and you cheat, I don't go, oh, well, that's one for you. No. It's not, if I cheat, sometimes I win. If you cheat, sometimes you win. That's not how this works. I'm sorry. I am not one of those guys. I will be unconvinced.
Watch Good Morning Mug Club live every Monday through Thursday at 10:15 Eastern.